Dust filled her mouth as she fell face first into the dry, yellow grass. Her legs were bleeding. Her shirt was torn. Her breath shook like the wind over the plains. For a second she tried to scream, but no sound came out. The sun was merciless, burning the skin on her back. Eliza pushed herself up, barefoot, her body trembling. Every step cut deeper into the cracked soil, every heartbeat louder than the buzzing flies around her wounds. She had been running for hours. Behind her, the plains stretched endless, painted with broken wagons and vultures circling above. Each mile she ran felt like a lifetime stolen from death itself. Somewhere back there, in the smoke and screaming, her father's voice still echoed, telling her to keep running. It started in the mining town up north, where her family had been killed for a pouch of gold dust, and she'd been taken as a prize by those outlaws, running from the sound of horses, from the smell of gunpowder, from men who had taken everything but her will to survive. Her stomach growled with pain, and her throat felt like sandpaper. She looked around and saw nothing but empty land, no town, no river, no mercy. Then, in the distance, a wooden fence shimmered under the heat, a horse, a well, and a man standing still, watching her. Her heart jumped in terror. What if he was one of them? She wanted to run again, but her body refused. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed onto the dirt. The man started walking toward her, slow and careful. He wore a brown hat, a red scarf around his neck, and eyes that hid more stories than the desert itself. When he reached her, she tried to crawl back, shaking her head. "Please, don't take it off." Her voice cracked. Tears mixed with dust on her face. The man froze. He looked down at her, at the bruises on her hip and shoulder, at the fear in her eyes. For a long moment, neither moved. Only the sound of the summer wind and a horse's breath filled the silence. He slowly bent down and reached for his water canteen. He'd seen that kind of fear before in the eyes of dying soldiers. The kind that didn't beg for help, only begged not to be hurt again. His hand trembled, not from age, but from memories he wished he'd buried. Eliza flinched, still thinking he might hurt her. But instead, he placed the canteen near her hand and stepped back. She stared at the water like it was gold. But could she trust him? Could any man be kind in a land where kindness got you killed? She hesitated. The rancher waited. The sky burned orange above them, and the dry wind whispered through the fence posts. Somewhere far away, a gunshot echoed. Her eyes widened again. Was she safe now, or had she just run into something far worse? The sound of that gunshot hung in the air for a while. Eliza didn't move. She watched the rancher's boot stop just a few feet away from her face. He didn't say a word. He simply waited, quiet, calm, patient in a way that didn't fit this cruel land. Then he said softly, "You need water more than you need fear." His voice was rough, deep, but not dangerous. It sounded like someone who had seen too much and got tired of fighting. Eliza looked at the canteen again, unsure if this was another trick, but her lips were so dry it hurt to breathe. She reached for it, slow, careful, like touching fire. The first sip burned her throat. The second brought tears to her eyes. She paused, tasting for poison or trickery, but it was just cool, clean water, something she'd forgotten existed in this forsaken land. She couldn't remember the last time water felt like mercy. The man looked away, giving her space. There was something old about him, not just his face, but his silence. He stood under the sun, hat low, his hands steady. After a while, he said, "You can stay inside till you figure where you're headed. Name's Jonas." Eliza hesitated. She didn't trust names anymore. Names were promises, and promises got people hurt. But her body ached for shade, and his voice didn't sound like a lie. The house was simple. Wooden walls cracked by heat, a rocking chair on the porch, the smell of coffee somewhere inside. Jonas brought a bowl of water, a clean cloth, and an old shirt. He didn't touch her, didn't stare, just said, "Wash up. The kitchen's yours." Eliza didn't know if she should thank him or run. She watched him step out to the fence again, checking on his horse. The afternoon light hit the side of his face, showing a scar that ran from his jaw to his ear. For a moment, she wondered what kind of man carries a scar like that and still offers kindness to a stranger. She touched her shoulder where one bruise was turning purple. Every movement hurt. But the silence of that small house felt safer than the open desert. As she cleaned her wounds, the dust turned red in the bowl. And for the first time since she fled, she whispered a prayer. Outside, Jonas leaned against the fence, eyes scanning the horizon. Something out there moved, small but fast. He reached for his rifle and sighed. Eliza heard the sound of the gun being cocked. Her heart stopped for a second. Was he protecting her, or was the danger just beginning again? Jonas didn't move for a long time. His eyes stayed on that thin line of dust rising in the distance. He knew what that meant. Someone was coming, and it wasn't the wind. Inside, Eliza froze when she heard the click of the rifle. Her fingers trembled over the wet cloth. Then she saw his shadow pass by the window. Jonas spoke, calm but firm. "Stay inside. Don't make a sound." She wanted to ask why, but something in his tone stopped her. Through a crack in the wall, she saw him walk out toward the fence, rifle resting in his hand, shoulders steady. The same quiet strength that once made him a soldier now made him something more dangerous. He'd lost his wife to raiders years ago, back when the war's echoes still rang in his ears, turning him into a man who preferred solitude over sorrow. A single rider appeared over the hill. Dirty coat, black hat, the kind of man who had left kindness behind a long time ago. He stopped his horse and spat. "Afternoon, old man." "Seen a girl come this way." Jonas didn't blink. "Depends on the kind of girl you're looking for." The rider smirked. "Pretty one. Looks hurt. Likes to run." Eliza's heart pounded so hard she thought the man outside could hear it. Her bare feet curled against the floor. The boards beneath her toes creaked, loud as thunder in her mind. Every sound felt like betrayal. She held her breath, afraid even her heartbeat might give her away. Jonas lifted his rifle, slow and smooth. Then he said something that would echo in her memory forever. "If I see a man chasing women through my land, I don't ask questions. I just aim." The silence cracked when the horse snorted. The rider's smile faded. For a moment, nobody breathed. Then he turned his horse, muttered a curse, and rode off toward the trees. Jonas waited until the dust disappeared before lowering the rifle. He didn't look back right away, just sighed, the sound heavy with years of battles that never made the papers. Inside, Eliza was shaken, not from fear this time, but something else. For the first time in months, she felt safe. Jonas stepped in, poured himself some coffee, and finally looked at her. They didn't need words. That quiet between them said enough. The light outside turned gold, the air soft again, and for a moment the world felt kind. But deep down, both knew it wasn't over. The kind of men who hunted Eliza never gave up that easy. So tell me, friend, if you were Jonas, would you have pulled the trigger? If you're still here, maybe pour yourself a cup of tea and stay with me a little longer. And hey, if you enjoy stories like this, go ahead and tap that subscribe button. It keeps this old storyteller riding on. Now tell me, what time is it where you are? And where are you listening from? Morning came with a cold breeze that smelled of it and gun oil. Jonas had been up before sunrise, feeding the horse, checking the fence line. He moved slow, careful, like a man who had seen too many mornings that ended in blood. Inside, Eliza packed what little she had. Her hands still shook, but her eyes were different now. No longer the same frightened girl who crawled across his yard. Something had changed. Something that looked a lot like courage. Jonas poured her a cup of coffee. "You can't keep running forever," he said. Eliza nodded, her voice small but steady. "Then help me stop them." He looked at her. Surprised, she wasn't asking for pity. She was asking for justice. By noon, they were riding toward Jackson Hole. The trail was quiet, except for the sound of hooves and the wind cutting through the sagebrush. Jonas carried his old rifle across his saddle. Eliza rode behind him, wrapped in his spare coat, eyes on the horizon. When they reached the small sheriff's station, the lawman there looked half asleep. Jonas told him what happened, about the girl, the gang, and the rider who had come to his ranch. The sheriff rubbed his beard, muttered something about short manpower and long miles. Eliza shifted uneasily, glancing out the window at the empty street. Wondering if the gang's spies were already watching, Jonas leaned closer, his voice firm. You got two choices, Sheriff. You can chase them now or bury more girls later." That woke him up. But even as they saddled up, Jonas whispered to Eliza, "If things go south, you ride back alone. Don't wait for us." Within an hour, 3 riders were ready, rifles strapped to their backs. Jonas joined them, even though no one asked him to. He had one last fight left in him, and this was it. They rode fast, dust rising behind like smoke. After hours of hard riding, by sundown, they found the gang's camp near the riverbed. 4 men, drunk, careless, laughing around a dying fire. Jonas raised his rifle, his finger steady. Eliza held her breath. For a moment, the world stood still again. A shout, a shot. Then, chaos. Bullets whizzed past Jonas's hat, one grazing the sheriff's arm while Eliza hid behind a rock. Her hands over her ears as the shouts and gunpowder filled the air. When the smoke cleared, 2 were down, 1 fled into the trees, and 1 was crawling, begging for mercy. Jonas lowered his rifle slowly, the smell of gunpowder dragging him back to other battlefields, other screams. He hated how steady his hands still were. Killing never left a man. It only slept inside him, waiting for a reason. Jonas didn't speak. He handed his rifle to the sheriff, turned away, and walked back toward the horses. Eliza stood there, watching the flames eat the camp. Justice didn't feel sweet. It felt heavy, like something you carry because no one else will. She vomited behind a bush, the adrenaline crashing down, realizing that killing, even for justice, left a stain on her soul. As they rode back under the silver moon, Jonas said quietly, "You did good today." Eliza smiled, just a little, for the first time, but somewhere behind them, in the dark, another pair of eyes was watching, and the story wasn't over yet. "So tell me, do you really think justice ever comes without a price?" The days that followed were quiet again. The kind of quiet that doesn't scare you anymore, but heals you. The air smelled clean after the rain. The fields around the ranch shimmered under a softer sun. Eliza stayed. At first she said it was only for a few days, but days turned to weeks. She helped Jonas with the horses, learned how to mend fences, and even smiled when the coffee was too strong. Jonas didn't talk much, but his silence had changed. It was no longer heavy. It was calm, like a man who had finally found a reason to stop running too. Sometimes, in the evenings, they sat on the porch, just listening to the wind. Eliza would look at the mountains glowing pink in the distance and say, "Maybe I can start again." Jonas would nod, half smiling, and answer, "Maybe we both can." The bruises on her skin faded, but the ones in her heart took longer. Nights were the hardest. She'd wake from nightmares, and Jonas would sit by the fire, sharing stories of his own ghost until dawn broke. Jonas never asked about the past, and she never asked about the war. They both carried stories too heavy for words, yet somehow their silence spoke louder than anything else. One morning, she brought him a cup of coffee and said softly, "You saved me." Jonas looked at her, the corners of his eyes creasing. "No," he said, "you saved yourself. I just happened to be there." She smiled, tears glinting in her eyes, and that was the moment healing truly began. Weeks later, when she rode into town to sell milk, people noticed the light in her face, not the kind of beauty that comes from youth, but the kind that comes from surviving something dark and still choosing kindness. And Jonas, watching from the gate, realized something. He didn't know if what grew between them was love or something quieter, something that felt like home, but as the light fell across her face, he realized that maybe peace wasn't found in prayers or justice. Maybe it was found in simply staying. Sometimes justice isn't about revenge. It's about giving someone a reason to believe again. So tell me, friend, what do you carry inside that still hurts? And what would it take for you to finally let it go? Maybe life is a lot like this old ranch. It breaks, it burns, and yet with enough patience, it grows green again. If this story touched you, take a second to leave a like. It tells the wind that someone out there still believes in good people. And if you want to hear more stories like this one, go ahead and subscribe. That's how you and I keep this campfire burning. Now, pour yourself another cup of tea. Take a breath and tell me, where are you listening from? And what time is it over there?